You think persistence means never giving up. But what if I told you that most people who claim to be persistent are actually just stubborn, walking in circles, mistaking motion for progress? What if the persistence you admire is not what creates success, but something completely different? Welcome to Elingo, where you don't just learn English, you discover new perspectives on life, growth, and what it really takes to succeed. Today, we're going to challenge everything you thought you knew about persistence. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes. They believe persistence is about doing the same thing over and over no matter what. They think it's about pushing harder when things get tough. They see someone who worked for 10 years and finally succeeded, and they think that's persistence. But they miss the invisible part of the story. The person who succeeded didn't just repeat the same actions for 10 years. They adjusted. They learned. They pivoted. They failed in one direction, learned from it, and tried a different approach. Real persistence isn't about being a rock that water cannot move. It's about being water that finds every crack, every opening, every new path. We romanticize the wrong kind of persistence because it looks impressive. Someone working 80 hours a week looks dedicated. Someone attempting the same goal for a decade looks determined. But if those 80 hours are spent on tasks that don't matter, if those 10 years involve repeating the same mistakes, then what looks like persistence is actually just exhaustion dressed up as virtue. Consider this. A study from Stanford University found that people who achieved long-term goals didn't just work hard consistently. They worked smart consistently. They checked their progress regularly. They asked themselves tough questions. Am I getting closer? Is this method working? What should I change? The ones who succeeded were not the most stubborn. They were the most adaptable while staying committed to their goal. I know what you're thinking right now. You're tired of hearing about success stories. You're tired of people who make it look easy. You're tired of advice that sounds good but feels impossible to follow. And honestly, that feeling makes perfect sense. You've tried to be persistent. You've pushed yourself. You've woken up early, stayed up late, sacrificed time with friends and family. You've told yourself that if you just keep going, eventually something will click. But months pass, maybe years, and you look at your progress and wonder, is this even working? That doubt isn't weakness. That doubt is your mind trying to protect you from wasting your life. The problem isn't that you're not persistent enough. The problem is that nobody taught you what real persistence actually looks like. Let me share something. There was a man named Alex who spent 5 years learning piano. Every single day he practiced for 2 hours. Rain or shine, tired or energized, he sat at that piano. After 5 years, he could play, but not well. He was frustrated. He felt like a failure. Then he met a teacher who watched him practice for 1 week and said, "You're practicing wrong. You're repeating your mistakes. You're building bad habits with perfect consistency." Alex changed his approach. He practiced less, but with more focus. He recorded himself. He identified specific weaknesses. He worked on them deliberately. Within 1 year, he improved more than he had in the previous 5. That's the difference. 5 years of stubborn repetition versus 1 year of intelligent persistence. Or think about Sarah, who wanted to build an online business. She spent 3 years creating content, posting every day, doing everything the experts said to do. But her audience stayed small. She felt invisible. She wondered if she just wasn't cut out for it. Then she stopped and asked herself a hard question. Am I creating what I want to create, or am I creating what people actually need? She interviewed her small audience. She discovered they wanted something completely different from what she was offering. She pivoted. Within 6 months, her audience grew more than it had in 3 years. These stories aren't special. They're common. Most people who eventually succeed have a moment where they realize that what they called persistence was actually just repetition. Real persistence requires the courage to change course without changing destination. Here's the truth that changes everything. Persistence is not about duration. It's about direction. You can spend 10 years going nowhere if you're heading in the wrong direction. You can work incredibly hard and achieve nothing meaningful if your effort isn't aligned with reality. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards effective effort. And the difference between the two is awareness. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to open a locked door. You push with all your strength. You push for hours. You push until your muscles ache. You tell yourself, "I'm being persistent," but the door doesn't open. Now, what if that door was designed to be pulled, not pushed? All your effort, all your persistence was in the exact wrong direction. The person who succeeds isn't the one who pushes hardest. It's the one who steps back, looks at the door, tries pulling, and gets it open in 5 seconds. This is what most people miss about persistence. They think it's about force. They think it's about willpower. They think if they just want it badly enough and work hard enough, eventually they'll break through. But life doesn't work that way. Life rewards people who pay attention. People who notice what's working and what isn't. People who are honest with themselves about reality, even when that reality is uncomfortable. Let me tell you why this matters so much. Every day you spend persisting in the wrong direction is a day you can't get back. Time is the one resource you cannot earn more of. When you're young, you feel like you have forever, but you don't. You have this moment, and the next moment, and the accumulation of those moments becomes your life. If you spend those moments being stubborn instead of being strategic, you wake up one day and realize years have passed and you're not where you wanted to be. The painful part is this. Society celebrates the wrong kind of persistence. We love the story of someone who never gave up, who kept trying the same thing until it finally worked. But we ignore all the people who did the exact same thing and failed completely because they never adapted. We suffer from survivorship bias. We only hear from the winners. We don't hear from the thousands who persisted in the wrong direction and ended up with nothing but regret and exhaustion. Real persistence requires something most people don't want to admit. It requires doubt. It requires questioning yourself. It requires looking at your methods and asking, is this actually moving me forward, or does it just feel like I'm doing something? That kind of honesty is uncomfortable. It's easier to just keep your head down and work. It's easier to tell yourself that if you're tired, you must be making progress. But being tired doesn't mean you're getting closer to your goal. It just means you're tired. Here's what intelligent persistence looks like. You commit to a goal, not to a method. The goal is your North Star. It doesn't change. But the path to that goal, that can change as many times as necessary. You try something. You give it genuine effort, but you also pay attention to feedback. You ask yourself, what's working? What's not? Where am I getting stuck? And then, here's the crucial part, you have the courage to change what isn't working, even if it means admitting you were wrong. Most people can't do this because their ego gets in the way. They've invested so much time and energy into their current approach that changing course feels like admitting defeat. They think, if I quit this method, all that time was wasted. But that's a fallacy. The time is already gone. The question is, do you want to waste more time, or do you want to adjust and actually move forward? Think about learning English. Imagine someone who spends years memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. They work hard. They're disciplined. They persist. But they never actually practice speaking. They never put themselves in real conversations. Years pass and they can read and write, but they freeze when someone speaks to them. Their persistence was real, but it was misdirected. The person who succeeds at English isn't the one who studies hardest. It's the one who notices that studying alone isn't enough and adds conversation practice, even though it's scary and uncomfortable. Or think about fitness. Someone decides they want to lose weight. They start running every day. They run for months. But they don't lose weight because they're eating more to compensate for the exercise and they don't realize it. A persistent person keeps running and stays frustrated. An intelligently persistent person notices the lack of results, educates themselves about nutrition, adjusts their diet, and actually achieves their goal. This principle applies to everything: career, relationships, personal growth, learning new skills. The pattern is always the same. People confuse activity with progress. They confuse stubbornness with determination. They think that if they're working hard and staying consistent, they're being persistent. But if you're consistently doing the wrong thing, you're just consistently failing. Now, here's where it gets deep. Why do we make this mistake? Why do we persist in the wrong direction? Part of it is fear. It's scary to admit you might be wrong. It's scary to change course because change means uncertainty. When you're doing the same thing every day, at least you know what to expect. Even if it's not working, there's comfort in familiarity. Changing means stepping into the unknown. It means risking failure in a new way. But there's something else. We're taught that quitting is bad. We're taught that changing your mind shows weakness. From childhood, we hear stories about people who succeeded because they never gave up. We internalize the message that persistence means never changing, never doubting, never adjusting. So when we're not making progress, instead of questioning our approach, we question ourselves. We think, I'm just not working hard enough. I just need to push more. And we double down on strategies that aren't working. The irony is that real persistence, intelligent persistence, often looks like quitting to outside observers. When someone changes their method, people say they gave up. They weren't persistent enough. But changing your method isn't giving up on your goal. It's giving up on a path that wasn't taking you there. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Consider the most successful people you know of. The inventors, the entrepreneurs, the artists. Read their stories carefully. Almost none of them succeeded by doing one thing consistently. They succeeded by trying many things, learning from failures, adapting, and eventually finding what worked. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb by doing the same thing over and over. He tried thousands of different approaches. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple by having one vision and never changing it. He adapted constantly based on what the market needed and what technology could do. J.K. Rowling didn't write Harry Potter by forcing herself to write in a way that wasn't working. She found her voice by writing, rewriting, and discovering what felt true. Persistence without awareness is just stubbornness. Persistence with awareness is power. The question you must ask yourself is this: are you being persistent, or are you just being stubborn? Are you committed to your goal, or are you committed to being right about your current method? Because those are two very different things, and they lead to two very different outcomes. So what do you actually do with this? How do you practice intelligent persistence instead of blind stubbornness? First, commit to your goal, but hold your methods loosely. Write down what you're trying to achieve. Be specific. Not, I want to be successful, but I want to build a career where I have creative freedom and financial stability. Not, I want to be better at English, but I want to be able to have natural conversations with native speakers. And understand movies without subtitles. That clarity matters because it lets you evaluate whether your current path is taking you there. Second, create feedback loops. Set clear checkpoints. Every month, ask yourself these questions. Am I closer to my goal than I was last month? What worked? What didn't? What surprised me? What should I try differently? Write down the answers. This isn't about judging yourself. It's about learning. If you're not making progress, that's not a moral failure. It's information. Use it. Third, be willing to pivot. If something isn't working after genuine effort, change it. And here's the key. Change it deliberately. Don't just randomly try something new. Think about why the old approach wasn't working. What did you learn? What should you try instead? Make an informed adjustment, not a desperate one. Then, give that new approach genuine effort before evaluating again. This doesn't mean you change course every week. That's just chaos. But it does mean you check in regularly and have the courage to adjust when necessary. Real persistence is flexible. It's strong, but not rigid. Like bamboo in wind, it bends without breaking. So here's my question for you. What are you persisting at right now that might need a change in direction, not a change in destination? What method have you been loyal to that might not be loyal to your goals? What would happen if you kept your dreams but questioned your strategy? Real persistence isn't about being unmovable. It's about being unstoppable. And sometimes being unstoppable means changing course. If this resonates with you, save it. Come back to it when you need the reminder that changing your path doesn't mean abandoning your destination. And subscribe to Elingo, where we explore not just English, but the perspectives that help you grow. Think differently and actually move forward in life. Your goal deserves intelligent persistence, not just stubborn repetition.